everybody, and welcome back to Bon Voyage Besties, your favorite travel podcast with your hosts, Rachel and Rosa. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to welcome a special guest and one of my closest friends, Amy, the cultural travel blogger behind TempleSeeker. With more than 20 years of travel experience, Amy brings a wealth of knowledge to the table. She holds a degree in religion and theology, along with a master's in South Asian Studies from the University of Manchester. On her blog, she shares insights into some of the world's most fascinating historical and religious destinations across Europe and Asia. And she's also done a lot of schooling in Portugal as well, which we are going to talk about today. And we can't wait to hear some of her stories. So let's welcome my awesome friend Amy to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so happy that you're finally able to make it on.
Now, Amy, are you currently located overseas in Portugal?
I'm back in Liverpool. I've kind of been half and half in Portugal and England for the last, I'd say for the last 5 years, since 2020, since COVID hit, really. And I tend to go to Portugal for the winter months to get a bit of winter sun. But I've been studying in Coimbra as well. So I've been trying to learn Portuguese, and it's a big challenge, but I've enjoyed it.
I'm so proud of you. I've seen your videos learning Portuguese and the presentations you do in front of the professor and the students. Do you ever get nervous? Because I feel whenever I speak French overseas, I just have a mini panic attack because I sound so terrible.
Yeah, it is nerve-wracking. I think it's easier to make mistakes in other languages as well. So once I referred to the professor as tu, which it should be você. That's like the informal, when I should use the formal for the professors. And I was like, disculpe, I'm so sorry.
I do that all the time. And Spanish is my first language. And even now, I'm so used to constantly speaking English, like at work, even at home. When I talk to people in Spanish, I'm like, no sé. And my Spanglish comes out. So I totally can relate.
Yeah, it's really hard having the two languages in your head. The last time I was in France, I was saying a little bit in English, a little bit in French, and they were super sweet about it, but it was hard. It was a real challenge. And I think, Amy, you said that you're level C1 now or C2?
I'm starting level C1 online at the moment. So I don't feel fluent yet, but I can definitely hold a conversation. But it's funny when you were saying about mixing the languages up, because when I traveled from Portugal to Spain, people in Spain thought I was Portuguese because I would speak Spanish with a Portuguese accent.
I love it.
Crazy.
So funny. That would happen to me in university. I actually took beginner's Italian, but I was so used to French that I kept saying Italian in a Parisian accent. And I remember my professor being like, we got to do something about that accent.
I've used French words as well in Portuguese sentences. It's so strange.
It's so funny. So in addition to learning Portuguese, you've also studied religion and theology. So how has that shaped the way you experience a new destination?
Well, that's a really good question. I think that you come to it with fresh eyes and a different kind of perspective when you have studied something. And I'm coming from a perspective that's more like cultural and studying religion as an academic subject rather than being a religious person. But it's good to see insights on different religions and cultures. So now if I go to a Buddhist temple, I'm thinking, okay, is this Theravada Buddhism or is it Mahayana Buddhism? And it's the same when I go around, for example, churches. I want to know, is it Orthodox? Is it Catholic? And it's really great to see the impact of culture on religion and how a religion can be different, even though it's the same denomination across different countries. I really love the architecture, so I enjoy learning about the different architectural styles of churches like Gothic and Romanesque. But I think more than anything, the religious side of things influences my travels by having deeper connections with the community, because one of my favourite travel experiences was when I was in Chiang Rai in northern Thailand. And I was cycling around Chiang Rai, visiting these different temples. And I went into one temple. And when I came out, there was stuff in my basket. And I thought, oh, I don't think I left anything in my basket. That's a bit strange. And I looked in my basket, my little bike basket, and it was full of crisps and sweets and drinks. And I didn't know why. And it was from the Buddhist monks. And I just looked up and one of the monks was like, yeah. And it was just such a lovely connection. It was so sweet. I felt really, really welcomed. And I think that it's those connections that make it important as well.
I love that. So growing up for myself, my family, very Catholic. So I grew up, I did my first communion, going to church every Sunday. And as I kind of grew a little bit older, I'm still religious, but not to that extent. But like you said about the architecture, that's one of my favorite things, especially when traveling to Europe, is visiting the different churches, because the architecture, it's amazing. And just seeing like a lot of these places that were built like hundreds of years ago, and like the gold and like the the artwork is just so beautiful. And like you said, you kind of feel at peace, even if you're not necessarily religious or a believer. It's just like such a calming sense of peace that you get when you visit these different churches across the world.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you're also really welcome as a solo traveller in most places of worship. So if I feel stressed because it's busy and I don't know where I'm going, I'll just sit in a church or a temple and I'll get a little bit of peace. And it's nice. It's time for reflection, time to just be calm and still and reflect on your experiences. I think that's really good.
That's really true. I know as a solo traveler in Europe, I've had those experiences where I just need a break. I'm thinking of one particular trip I took to Italy, and I was going through kind of a rough patch at home. There were just like a bunch of things going on, and just taking some time to sit in the little chapels and unwind and reflect really made my trip so much better because I remember it being crowded and kind of rainy, and it was just nice to take that break. And like Rosa, I grew up Catholic, so I did my first communion, I did confirmation, and I actually went to Catholic high school, and I was a peer minister, which is usually surprising for people who know me.
I did not know that about you, Rachel.
Yeah.
So many hidden talents.
Yeah. When I was a junior in high school, we had a program where you could be a peer minister to the students, and I ran retreats at my high school, which is like definitely really interesting to think about. Like I said, if you know me now, you'd be like, what? Really? You?
Full of surprises, aren't you?
Yeah, but even though I don't go to church as much anymore, it's still, like you said, just so peaceful. And I've had so many churches and temples bring me to tears. Like I cry at everything now, but there's been multiple occasions where the architecture is just so beautiful, the art, the gold, everything. And I've cried. Like I remember in Strasbourg, my friend and we went to Easter Mass, and I was like bawling my eyes out.
Yeah, I feel
Right.
like this emotional connection when I'm in church. I get the same way, like with the singing sometimes. I'm just like, oh my God, and tears are flowing. I'm like, what just happened?
I think that when me and Rachel were in Barcelona, I think I cried every day.
We cried literally every single day. And then every day was our favorite. When
Today's
we're
my
together,
favourite day.
Today's my favorite day. I think we have to go back to Barcelona. Getting sidetracked, but we have to definitely go back to Barcelona because, Rosa,
Always
when I
love
say
it.
we cried every single day at the architecture and the churches, we cried every single day. Like, I think I had to walk around with a pack of tissues or something because it was too much. It was constant.
I believe it. Barcelona's beautiful. It'll bring me to tears too. So, Amy, I'm curious, has any country surprised you the most in terms of its religious traditions or maybe some of its cultural experiences?
Yeah, I think Bulgaria really surprised me, actually. And I think it's because when I went on that trip, I was doing an overland trip from Istanbul to Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. And I'd hyped Istanbul up so much in my head. I'm like, oh, the Blue Mosque, Topkapi Palace, all these places I really wanted to see. And I didn't really know much about Bulgaria. I think I just got a cheap flight out of Sofia, so I kind of used that to fly out cheaply. But when I got to Bulgaria, I was really, really surprised. And they've got that famous Alexander Nevsky Orthodox Cathedral in the middle of Sofia, and it's absolutely amazing. And I went downstairs in that, and they've got this crypt, and it was full of really early medieval icons. It was absolutely amazing. And then I took this trip into the Rila Mountains in Bulgaria, and it was founded by a group of hermit monks, and they actually rebuilt this church. It's painted gold, blue. It's got all the iconography in it. It was absolutely stunning. It blew me away. I think just because it was so unexpected, and I didn't realise how much iconography was involved in Orthodox churches in Bulgaria. And it was quite unique. It was quite different. I think when something's unexpected like that, it catches you off guard and you really, really remember it.
Love those like hidden gems that you kind of stumble upon.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, sometimes this happens to me too. I'll build up a destination so much in my head. And not that it's disappointing or anything, but sometimes it's hard for the destinations to meet those expectations. And then those places where, you add it to the itinerary, but don't necessarily think as much about, they can surprise you in the best possible way.
Yeah, sometimes I think it's better to go with no expectations, and then you don't hype it up, you don't build up a certain aspect of it, and you're quite often really pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, 1,000%. So this episode, we really want to talk about Portugal because that's where you've spent the most amount of time. I love love getting those pictures in the wintertime where I'm sitting in the parking lot at school and you're just like in this amazing destination. And I'm like, Amy, I'm about to go in and teach 6 classes and you're in Portugal.
Always in Portugal. If I'm not here,
You're-
I'm in Portugal.
You're
Yeah,
always in Portugal. So let's ask the big question first. Why learn Portuguese in particular? Because I know at my school, we have Spanish available. And where I went to high school, I think it was Spanish, French, German, and Latin, if I recall correctly. High school was a long time ago for me. So why Portuguese?
Well, yeah, that's the same here in England, really. In the UK, people learn French, German, or Spanish usually. And I think it's nice to have a language that's still quite a popular Romance language, but that's not one of the key ones that everybody can speak. So people are impressed when you say, oh, I can speak Portuguese. And it sounds so cool. But actually, in all honesty, I found Portuguese easier to learn than French. What's interesting about Portuguese is there's a lot of similarities with the English language that people don't realise. Like information is informação, security is seguridade. So it's quite similar. And I found it a lot easier to learn than I expected, really. But of course, Portugal is like my second home to me, and it's a fantastic language. But the other great thing about Portuguese is that I think it's 8 countries in the world where Portuguese is spoken. So you can use your Portuguese in Brazil, Mozambique, Angola, Cape Verde, loads of places. So I think it's a brilliant one to learn. I would recommend it.
Love that. Growing up where I lived when I was in high school, predominantly is a lot of Portuguese and Brazilian. So I grew up hearing people speak Portuguese and again, speak Spanish. So I kind of understood a little bit. And my best friend, she's in Portugal. A few years ago, when we first went to Portugal for the first time, I forget where we were traveling to, but we were going down to the Algarve area and we pulled at this gas station and I'm trying to communicate with the lady and she starts talking to me in Portuguese and I'm like, panicked. I was like, I don't even know what you're saying. I'm talking to her in Spanish. She didn't speak English. Like some way, somehow, like we communicated. And like you said, a lot of words are similar to like even Spanish and English. And she was trying to tell me that my car was like parked incorrectly or something at the gas pump and to be careful because of the police. So I like picked up little words and I was like, okay, policia, got it. And I'm like running out, telling my husband, like, all right, we got to turn around because like we're facing like the wrong direction or something like that. But I think it's very interesting similarities between some of the languages. But for myself personally, I know like with my friend, when she starts talking Portuguese, I'm like, I have no idea what the hell you just said. Like, slow it down, slow it down.
A lot of it is the pronunciation, so it's easier to read than to pronounce sometimes. There's a lot of sh sounds in Portuguese, which we don't always have in English. So it's an interesting one. And there's nasal sounds as well. So I really found it difficult to do the nasal sounds at first because instead of saying now, you've got to say now. So the way that we had to learn it was like we kept holding our nose like this and going now, cow, and then we could get the nasal sounds.
Love that though. So what would you say are some of like the useful phrases for like a first timer traveling to Portugal? I know for myself, the only thing I know how to say is like obrigado, bom dia.
Yeah, so obrigado for thank you. But the funny thing is that there's a difference between the masculine and the feminine. So for the first 6 months that I was in Portugal, I was talking about myself as if I was a man because I was saying obrigado. But actually for women, it should be obrigada.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. In Porto, they tend to use obrigado regardless, so it's not too bad. But you probably want to learn how to say queria, which is I would like or I want if you're going to a pastelaria or something. Bom dia, good morning, good day. Desculpe is I'm sorry. And I would say learn some foods as well because Portugal is absolutely amazing for food, as you know. So learn some food so that when you go to a restaurant, you can recognize some of them on the menu. So sardines, you'll always see that. Arroz de marisco, that's the seafood rice. That's lovely. That risotto,
so good.
Absolutely,
especially with
that.
the prawn shrimps. Oh,
yeah,
my God.
So and pastel de nata. Pastel de nata are those little.
Yes, that's my favorite.
Yes.
You know that one. Those little custard tarts, they are gorgeous, but you can't overdo it because they're so sugary and so sickly. And I think basically I ate so many pastel de nata in Portugal, I just couldn't eat them anymore. I'd overdone it.
Yeah, that happened to me on my first trip to Lisbon. I ordered a whole box just for me, and I was like inhaling all of these pastries. And the next day, I felt like kind of nauseous and a bit rough. And I was like, okay, too much of a good thing. They were amazing, but I should not have eaten a whole box. Like,
yeah.
Don't
Take it
do
easy.
that.
Go easy on the natter.
So that's so awesome. So how has living in Portugal allowed you to embrace the culture and learn the language?
Think that you can really relate to people well, because the thing is with Lisbon and Porto, most people will speak English. It's not difficult to find English speakers, but when you go into the smaller towns inland, places like Coimbra and Évora, there's less English speakers, and that's when you notice the difference. And so for me, spending time out there was absolutely invaluable to learning, because I was in Coimbra, I was ordering my breakfast and my lunch in the pastelerias, I was speaking to the university lecturers in Portuguese, I'd get home back to my little apartment and then I'd watch the news in Portuguese. And that kind of immersion really, really helped me to embrace the culture. And what I love about Portugal is that they have all of these little sayings, and a lot of them are to do with sardines or fishing or the sea. And you hear them and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. But when you're there and you're living in that culture, then it actually does. It's really funny. Like they have one saying that's something like aguas de bacalhau, and it means that like you're swimming in codfish water. And it's like one of those situations where you're working really, really hard, but you're not getting anywhere. And that's what they say. Fica aguas de bacalhau.
We need to bring that saying to New Jersey, Rosa. I feel like that's been our lives.
That's my motto. This whole week, that has been me swimming in bacalhau.
Yeah, me too. Me too. But we are the top in our division for soccer, so it's okay.
Well done. Amazing.
A lot of hard work, though. I feel absolutely exhausted. But it's interesting what you're saying with keeping up the language skills by going to those areas that are more off the beaten path, because I noticed that in France too. I was there this summer, and Paris, pretty much everybody speaks English, and contrary to popular belief, they're pretty nice about switching to English and talking with you. But when I went down to Toulouse, the French absolutely went a lot further, because even though some people spoke English, it wasn't as widespread. So it definitely forced me to practice a little bit, and the locals were super sweet about it. They were really nice.
In Portugal as well, it really helps you to connect with the elderly generation, because a lot of people who are over 50, over 60, they didn't do English at school. So those are the people you really need to connect with in their own language. I mean, I got free gingina once because I spoke to an old lady in Portuguese, and she went and she was like, wait there. And she went into a house and she came out with a bottle of homemade gingina and just started filling up the shot glasses. I was like, okay, get used to this.
The perks of learning the local language.
So cute. That's so cute. Something similar happened to me. I think it was in Annecy, and I was speaking French with the wait staff, and I did something, and I was like, oh, je suis désolé, and they were like, no désolé. And then when we left, they were all giving me big hugs, and I was like, oh my god, this is so sweet.
So sweet.
That's the power of language.
Exactly. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, when I hear people that they're traveling overseas to a different destinations and they're like, oh, I didn't like it. Nobody spoke English. And I'm like, but yeah, you're going to Portugal. You can't expect everyone to speak English. You're going to a new destination, at least learn the basics. And I feel like that goes a long way. And then you're able to communicate. Like you said, people warm up to you a little bit more because they see that you're at least making that effort. But you can't expect to go to a new country and for everyone to speak your native tongue when you're visiting somewhere new.
Yeah,
so you just have to be open to the experiences. I feel like that just opens up the door for you to connect on a different level.
That's part of the fun of it, isn't it? That's the whole point of traveling, to experience something different, something new, something exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. So Amy, do you have any more like awesome stories like that where knowing Portuguese helped you connect with the locals at a deeper level? I mean, free alcohol is always awesome, but
plus, just give me the pastries and the alcohol. I'll learn any language.
For real, right? Oh, if I got free French wine and free French pastries, I would be practicing French every single day.
Yeah, it's definitely an inspiration. The thing is about Coimbra, people always stop you on the street to have a conversation. That doesn't really happen that much in like London or Manchester or Liverpool. But in Coimbra, in the smaller Portuguese towns, it really does. And I remember when I first arrived and I'd just be like, bom dia. And that was about the extent of it. And I was a bit embarrassed. But the one time I came out of my apartment, and this is probably when I got to about B1 level in Portuguese. And one of the neighbours walked past me and said something broken because it was raining. And she said something about casaco and guarda-chuva. And guarda-chuva is rain guard. So it's an umbrella, like, haven't you got an umbrella? And I could get it. And I was like, oh, I understand her. And I just said back to her in Portuguese, I'm English, no problem for me. And then she just laughed, and it kind of clicked then that, like, we could joke about things. And I started to see her in the little pasteleria at the end of my road where my apartment was. And then I saw them again, and they would always chat to me a little bit, and they would ask me, oh, are you going back to England? And I'd say, yeah, I'm going back to England, but not for the husband. Pour a milk cow for the dog. And then they would laugh.
Yeah, you have to see Blake.
Yeah, Blakey. So they kind of like twigged that they could start to have a joke and a laugh with me. And then I would go and sit in that pasteleria sometimes just to practice, because once I'd kind of broken the ice and I'd got to that stage where I could understand the majority of the conversation, I would be better going there to practice with the locals rather than to like go to the library in Coimbra University. It was more authentic, and it was starting to come to me a lot faster then. That's when I started to understand and be able to respond. And I think that that's when you really feel like you've got there in a language. You're not quite fluent, but you can get about 80% of the conversation. And so the words that you're missing, you can kind of figure out from the context and take it from there. And I was just over the moon when that started happening for me.
And that's amazing, because I know for some people that could be challenging because they don't want to mispronounce a word, or even they don't want to say, I know in Spanish, when you translate things from Spanish to English or vice versa, sometimes it doesn't always translate properly. Sometimes I say things and I'm like, wait a minute, that made zero sense and that's not what I was trying to convey. So I know it could be a little bit challenging. Do you have any tips for someone that maybe they're a little bit shy or they feel awkward just practicing the language?
Yeah, I would say you need to buddy up with someone. So I had a friend, a Brazilian friend actually, in Coimbra, and we used to just meet up for coffee and practice. But the problem with them being Brazilian was I ended up going to the University of Coimbra with a bit of a Brazilian accent, and they used to tell me off for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they used to go, now, isso é Portugal, now é Brazil. Sorry, no, I'm not Brazilian. But I think buddying up is a really good way to do it. And if you don't have a friend in your local area who you can connect with, you can go online and meet people. So I used an app called italki, which is really good for getting someone Portuguese, and you can specify Brazilian or Portuguese when you go on the app. And they've also got French on there, Spanish on there, quite a few different languages. And then I would say just go online with them or meet them in person for 1 hour a week. And even that will build your confidence up. And when you've started to be able to converse with somebody who you know quite well, then you can start to go into little cafes and places where you'll see locals, and that'll give you a little bit more confidence.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I can also vouch for italki because I used it for French, and it made a huge difference, just like knowing that there was like 45 minutes a week where I would have to sit and just speak in French. It kind of forces you to use the language that you otherwise maybe won't be using day to day. Because I have a follow-up question about that. I know for me with French, when I'm in France, it's great. Like, it's everywhere. I use it all the time. But when I'm back in New Jersey, nobody speaks French here, like, at all. There's one other person at my school who speaks it, and sometimes we'll talk. But how do you suggest keeping up those language skills if, say, they're like you, where they're living in Portugal part of the year, but then they go back home to the UK?
Again, meeting people is always good. So meetup.com is a good place to meet people because they have things like international language exchanges. There's one in Liverpool where I've met some Spanish and some Portuguese friends. Bizarrely, I make friends on flights. So when I'm coming back from Portugal, I meet people and chat to them. And there was one guy, again, he was Brazilian, but we had a chat in Portuguese, and he said, oh, I'm going to be working in Liverpool. So I've stayed in touch with him, and every now and again we meet for coffee, and again I'll have a little practice. But the great thing about having the internet nowadays is that you can go online, you can watch the news in Portuguese, TP Noticias, and you can also get loads of really good things on Netflix. Just watch some Portuguese series. There was a really good one that I watched, and it was in the Azores, and a boat had crashed, and the boat was full of cocaine. That's in Portuguese. I can't remember what name it is.
Yeah, I gotta watch that.
Portuguese novellas, they have some hot men.
They do, and it's always really heated.
You learn the language and you get some eye candy.
And I
hope Michael doesn't listen to this episode.
It's all good. It's all good.
This is not
You're just
for partners.
watching. You're just watching. Doesn't matter.
They're really, really passionate though, and they're always having like really high-fueled, passionate fights, and it's great. Yeah, watch some good Portuguese TV. That's what I would recommend.
All right, I know what I'm doing after going to the farm today. I'm firing up some Portuguese television.
Watch the novellas. Back on track, because we could get derailed easily around here.
Like, we're crazy. We'll go off track big time, but it's fine. It's fine.
So I know for myself, I've gone to Portugal now 3 times. And like you said, the food there, amazing. I love the architecture. And during my first trip, we were there for about 2 weeks. So we got to explore a little bit more. One of my favorite places that we visited, we did like a day trip in Sintra. We also went to Douro Valley when we were up in Porto, which was phenomenal and amazing. But do you have any other places that are more like off the beaten path or like hidden gems?
Yeah, there's some really amazing monasteries near Lisbon, Alcobaça and Batalha, and they're quite famous. They've got important tombs of previous kings and queens, things like that. In Coimbra, I would say don't miss Coimbra, because Coimbra's also got the Santa Cruz Church, and that's where the very first 2 kings of Portugal are buried. And then over the Mondego River on the other side in Coimbra, there's 2 monasteries, and the lower monastery by the River Mondego is where they had Queen Isabella's tomb. And she was really popular in Portugal because she helped the poor, even though her husband didn't like it. And they called her the Queen of Roses because she had her dress full of bread to go and feed people. And the story says that when her husband came and saw her going out with the bread to feed the poor, he was going to tell her off and say, "What's that?" And she said, "No, there's nothing here, just roses." And she'd got flowers. And that was the miracle part of it, that they miraculously turned the bread into flowers. So she's Queen Isabella. And what happened is she was buried by the Mondego in that tomb in the lower part of where the river is, but it kept flooding, so they had to rebuild that monastery higher up. So there's Santa Clara a Velha, which is the old one where she used to be, and then there's Santa Clara a Nova, which is up on the hill, and that's where her tomb has been relocated to, and you can still visit it there. So there's the great thing about Portugal is there's lots of stories about all the past kings and queens and the romances, and I love all of that. There's 2 routes you can do if you're interested in architecture. You can do the Romanesque route or the Gothic route, and that takes you around all of the old monasteries or cathedrals with historical significance. But obviously, a lot of people go to the Algarve, and in the Algarve, everybody goes to Faro and Lagos. But there's more interesting places than that. I really, really recommend Tavira, because Tavira is just more authentically Portuguese. In places like Albufeira, they're a little bit overrun with tourists now, so there's just loads of bars and drinking. But if you go to Tavira, that still feels more authentically Portuguese. And then I wanted to mention 3 other places which I think are really, really cool. Braga, Guimarães, and Évora. So Braga has got an amazing cathedral, and it's also got that sanctuary of Bom Jesus with the zigzag staircase that's really, really famous.
It's really nice, and you have nice mountain views. I went there on my last visit with my friend. She took us there. It was amazing.
Did you love Braga? Yeah.
I did. It was beautiful. We did a day trip. So we went to Braga, we did the Bom Jesus, then we went to Evora, but we just went to like the mall to eat, and then we went back to her place. She's like about an hour or so away from there.
That's really cool. I liked Braga as well, just to walk around, because it's quite flat. So the problem with places like Porto and Coimbra, they're so hilly and it's really, really hard on your knees. Braga's quite flat, and Evora is a little bit better in that sense as well. But the thing that you should see if you go to Evora is they've got that chapel of bones. There was like 6,000 skeletons of monks, and they dug them up and they lined the chapel with it. That's fascinating. It's really, really cool. So you need to go and see that. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I could talk all day about all the amazing places there are in Portugal, because there's just so many.
Yeah, there's so many. And I think that's a common mistake, because the last time I went to Portugal, it was years ago. I really need to go back. I unfortunately only had time to go to Lisbon and Porto, which is where most people go. And even though on a map it looks like a smaller country, there's just so much to see and do. Like, you could easily spend a month there and not run out of things.
6 months easily. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's definitely a beautiful country. And when we went the first time, we ended up renting a car. And I have to say, aside from some of the smaller towns where you kind of have to like navigate very like narrow streets and it could get a little chaotic, or like the hills in Douro Valley, for the most part, commuting through Portugal was fairly easy. The highway system was easy. I felt like the navigation was, easy overall. So I would definitely recommend renting a car. That way you can kind of explore a little bit more of the country.
Yeah, my husband's driven in Portugal and he got on okay. I think he was a bit apprehensive about it, but he did really well. Once we were in Portugal, it was all quite straightforward. You just need to make sure you're okay with your hill starts, don't you?
Oh, we had that experience. We're like driving to Douro Valley, and my husband's like, "What the hell, Rosa?" I was like, "I didn't know." I was
What
like,
did
"Is
you
that
do? It's all your
a
fault.
direct route?" There was like a truck, and you're like on the side of the hill, so they're trying to pass you, and you're just like look down, and it's just like the cliff, and you're like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit."
Yeah, we felt that way in Crete because it was the same thing with like all the mountain driving. Unfortunately, I got out of driving entirely, which thank God, because New Jersey's really flat. There's no mountains here. And I was just like, how are they even doing this? I would be freaking out. I would just kind of look the other way because the mountains were scary.
They were on the drive back. We were going to a winery, so I drank a little too much, so I slept the whole way. Samantha had to be the GPS. I was like, guys, sorry, good night.
Good night. Good night and goodbye.
Just get me home safe, please.
Yeah, if you're in Porto, you definitely need to do that trip down the Douro Valley because you'll drive a little bit of it and then you'll do a boat for a little bit of it and you end up somewhere near Pinhao and it's just all little quintas for wine all along there. And you do these tours and you're in small groups and usually they give you like a different wine at each quinta that you stop off at. And there was a group of about 10 of us, but nobody liked the rosé port, but I really liked the rosé port. So every
It's like
quinta,
rosé.
everybody else would have they'd have a rosé and then a tawny or a ruby port, but everybody would give me the rosé. So instead of having one drink at every quinta, I had 10 drinks at every quinta. And then at the last one, they really loved us. And so they opened up a bottle of vintage port. And of course, if they open up the vintage port, you've got to drink the whole bottle
drink it
because it's
all.
not going to
You
last.
have to drink
You've
it
got to
all.
drink
You
it
have to drink
all.
everything. Yeah, you have to.
Small sacrifice to make, you know?
Yeah, so if you like port, you definitely need to do the Douro Valley trip. It's amazing. Gorgeous scenery as well.
Time to book that direct ticket from Newark to Porto. Let's do it.
It was one of my favorite trips. And then that same thing, like you said, we went to like a quinta. We ended up spending it just in the one place, which was like phenomenal and seeing like the views. And same thing, I love rosé. So they opened a bottle for the group and nobody drank it. So I ended up drinking an entire bottle of wine, which this is usually after 2 glasses, I'm tap out. When I tell you, I like fell asleep on their couch. It was so pretty too. I was like, it was an adventure, but I had a wonderful time, and I think about that all the time.
Yeah,
we have to
amazing.
go back. Mm-hmm.
It would be a perfect girls trip.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Girls trip to Portugal. Always, always.
Just tell me the date and I'll be there.
You need to. I feel like I can't go to Portugal without you after seeing all your amazing pictures and whatnot. But I know with Portuguese, you talked a little bit about watching The Gorgeous Men on Netflix. But do you have any other really good language resources, like any apps or podcasts, maybe a YouTube channel that people can find for free?
Yeah, there's loads of really good ones. So I started out using Duolingo and I really love Duolingo, especially for French. But the thing is with Portuguese, it's Brazilian Portuguese on Duolingo. So if you want to learn Portuguese with that Portuguese accent, you need to perhaps go for Practice Portuguese. That's much better. Practice Portuguese does up to B2 level. And then the other really good place, it's online, is Instituto de Camões, and they do up to C1 level, and you can do that online as well. So because I've recently gone back to work because I need to get my money up because I've spent all that money on Portuguese port and university in Coimbra. So I'm back working. Got to build the money up somehow, yeah.
Girl, I have a lot to say about that right now after Greece and France. So it's
you know all about that. So I've decided to do my C1 online because it just gives me a little flexibility with being able to earn money and being back in the UK, catching up with friends and family here. But then hopefully I'll end up going back to Portugal again because I'd like to probably repeat C1 in Portugal to get the practice, especially for that accent, get that right and get fluent. That's the goal.
Yeah, we have to have a party for you once you graduate.
I'll go to Portugal.
And go to Portugal.
We're going to Portugal and celebrate Amy.
Yes, we're going to make it happen. Amy, I have not been to Portugal since 2014. That's how long it's been.
That's too long. You can't go a year without going to Portugal.
I know. I definitely have to go back for sure. We'll talk about it when I go to London this year. Be like, all right, before you leave, you need to book it in the United app.
Like you said, there's direct flights.
My record was about 7 times in 1 year.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I love that, though. I love that. I wish it was closer. I'd be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, for us as well, like an 8-hour, 9-hour flight, but it's direct, so
Yeah, it's direct. And what's nice is I think you guys may want to verify this, but I think Newark now seasonally they have direct flights to Faro too,
yeah,
which is
I
really
think that
cool.
they do, yeah. When you're flying
yeah.
from the UK, it's quite easy because you can go Manchester flies to Faro, Porto, and Lisbon. Liverpool does, I think, Porto, but only in the summer months. So it's kind of March it kicks in, and then in October the Porto flights finish. But they do Lisbon as well. And from London, you can go to any Portuguese airport. My flight's like 2.5 hours from Liverpool to Porto, and it's easy because my house is literally 20 minutes away from Liverpool airport. So I love doing that flight. And I'm absolutely gutted when it gets to November and you're like, no, the Porto flights have stopped for the winter.
Yeah, that's always rough with the seasonal flights. Like I know it's the same. Like my parents, they drive down to Florida now, but before they would use the Atlantic City airport, which is like this tiny like airport to go to Florida. And in the winter, there's a ton of low-cost flights. But then like I think those may end in April. So then after that, you have to wait till like November for them to kick in again. And otherwise you'd have to go to Philadelphia and that's
Yeah,
far.
You just
it's a
got to
bit of
plan
a
it,
trek.
haven't you, really? And yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth it. It's worth it every time.
Exactly. It's totally worth it. So many amazing places in Portugal. So definitely, if you guys haven't been, we highly, highly recommend. So, Amy, I'm curious, are there any other cultural customs that travelers should know before they're visiting Portugal, especially if it's their first time?
Yeah, beware that you might get kissed on the cheeks quite a lot.
Oh yeah, the
So
double cheek, the double kiss.
they do the double. They do two.
For us
So don't go for the
Americans,
mouth.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's happened to me. They did a double kiss. It was my friend, and she was like, "Rosa, don't forget." And I'm like, "Oh shoot!" I was like, I almost kissed her mom in the lips.
Yeah.
Track of how many times I was kissed in Portugal. And when I got back, I told my parents, I was just like, the amount of people kissing me in Portugal, it was a lot. And they were like, what? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's happened to me quite a lot. So I got used to it in the end. But the other weird thing is like how the order in which things should happen for food. So, like, you know that I love port and I just want to drink port all the time. But with a meal, you have it at the end of the meal. It's like with your dessert or as an aperitif. And I didn't know that. I was just going in and ordering port straight away. And they were like, oh, that's a bit strange. And then the coffee thing, the coffee is so strong and they always have coffee as well at the end of the meal. And I was like, oh, yeah, I quite fancy a coffee. But it was a really, really strong espresso shot. And honestly, I was like, that's just too much. I can't do it. So you have to learn in Portuguese all the different names for all the different types of coffee. And this was bizarre for me because I'm just used to having like, I'll just do a cafetiere and I've got what I usually have at home and that's it. I never realized that there were so many different types of coffee, but I like the coffee quite milky. So they do this one, which is half your coffee and half milk, and you have to say galão. So yeah, if you walk in and go vai ser galão, and then you'll get your milky coffee and it's gorgeous. I really, really love it, but it's very, very calorific. So when I got back from spending a full year in Portugal on and off with just university holidays back in the UK. I got back here in summer and I was literally the heaviest I've ever been. And I was like, this is terrible. This is all the galão, the galois, because it's plural. This is all the galois and all the pastéis de nata. And yeah, I'd put on a lot of weight. So you think you're going to lose weight. Yeah, you think you're going to lose weight because of all the walking, right? But actually you put it on because of all the amazing food and drink. So yeah.
Yeah.
The
That's so
coffee
funny.
is something else.
Yeah, that's the one trip that I actually came back and I did put on a few pounds. And I was like, how is that even possible? We were like in Lisbon and we went during the month of August. So not only are we walking a lot, it was so hot. I was like, how did I not sweat off these calories?
Yeah. How did that happen? But it does. Be careful of that.
But it was worth it because everything was amazing. I had a wonderful time. And I was like, you know what? Calories and money, they don't count on
Worry
vacation.
about that later.
Worry about it later. Just avoid the scale for 3 months and then it's like it never happened. I mean, it's the same thing. Just don't log into your bank account and then you don't know. It's totally fine. What you don't know doesn't hurt you.
But the amazing thing, though, thinking about your bank account, is that it's just so cheap in Portugal. So if you go inland, if you get out of Porto and Lisbon, you can't believe how cheap it is to eat out and to have a drink out. So like €1 will get you a really nice coffee or a shot of ginginha. €1 could get you like a half a beer, like a small beer. Yeah, your money does go far when you actually travel to those more remote places in Portugal. It's really, really good value for money.
Yeah, I noticed that too when I was there years ago. And I mean, I'm used to New Jersey prices, New York City prices. So I feel like everything feels more affordable when I leave. But Definitely in Portugal, there was a big difference. So sometimes I'll have students ask me when they graduate, like a good destination to go that isn't going to break their wallet. And Portugal is one of the ones I always recommend because, like you said, once you're out of Lisbon and Porto, the prices are more affordable, especially if you're a young backpacker and you don't have too big of a budget to begin with.
Yeah, it's a good destination for young backpackers and budget travelers, definitely.
And the best hostels in Europe, I remember the hostels were really, really good. I still think about the one I stayed in Lisbon. It was just lovely. It was called Home Hostel, and the mother would make us like a lovely Portuguese meal every night for a reasonable
Oh,
price. And she was
so
so
sweet.
sweet and kind. And there were all sorts of activities. It was clean. The people were really nice. And it does have a lot of really highly rated hostels. So anyone looking to travel alone and stay at a hostel, I would definitely recommend Portugal just because there's so many great options for that type of accommodation.
Yeah, it's good for solo travel as well because the hostels are so friendly. You do just meet people on the way. Like now I'm in my 40s, I tend to go for a hotel sometimes rather than just always hosteling. But sometimes I do break it up with a hostel stay because I want to meet other travellers, and that's a really good way. So yeah, I think that if you're looking for somewhere in Europe that's a good budget destination, very safe and ideal for solo travel, then Portugal it should be on your list.
I'm like, my luggage is packed. I'm like ready to go.
I know. My suitcase is still sitting in the hallway with stuff in it. Like I just don't even bother
We
anymore
can
because
we
I'm
can
like
go and
I
stay with
booked
my
one
friend
repack.
Michelle. Yeah.
Yeah, just repack. So Amy and I have a joke about this with the United app, how it can't stay empty. When I got back from Paris, it was empty maybe for 3 weeks before I booked my London flight because I just couldn't stand it when I would open up and it says there's no trips to be found. I was like, well, listen here.
Yeah, I've already got Portugal in there for October. So literally this time next month, I'll be back.
I
I
love
love
it. I've
it.
been cheating
Love
on
it.
United lately. I've been a Delta girly.
How's Delta? You like it?
I have so many miles. So I was like, you know what? It's more accessible. It's kind of a little bit cheaper too in terms of miles versus United. So I still love United, but I've been a Delta girly.
Yeah, I think so. This is like getting off topic, but I do think with how hard it is to maintain status and different things with devaluing miles, I'm just going to start going with the cheapest ticket, I think, instead of one airline because I get tired of that.
Yeah,
So do
that's
you
my
know
go-to.
how much my cheapest ticket ever to Portugal was?
God,
Don't make us jealous.
Make us jealous.
In UK pounds. In UK pounds, have a guess.
Oof, pounds. All right. So comparing it to flights to Florida, where like back home you can get like a cheap flight sometimes for like 80 US dollars. I don't know how much that would be like in pounds.
$80 would be about
Maybe like
£75. Cheaper.
yeah. 20 pounds?
Yes, 19.99. Rachel got it. Well done, Rachel.
Almost
Good
free.
guess.
My goodness, that's amazing.
Ever see those prices for Florida? Not even with Spirit, man. Like
No, that's how
And
much
we
it
are
cost me to go to
spoiled
New
here.
York.
yeah, you guys have
$23.
really good cheap flights over there. Like the US, like the flights, they'll charge you
Yeah.
so much. Even Spirit. And I'm like, girl, it's Spirit. Why are you charging me $300?
Yeah, flights over here are insane. Just for me to go pay the toll from New Jersey into New York is $23. And that's with the discount. Yeah.
Thinking about that because Rosa and I, we have a trip to New York tomorrow. They raised the prices on New Jersey Transit again. I don't know what it is to go into New York City, but I'm going to be cranky.
So needless to say, we're planning a trip to Portugal.
Yes.
All
Yes,
right.
we are. Should we do a rapid fire round on Amy?
Yes, are you ready, Amy, for some really tough questions?
Yeah, these are really hard.
All right.
Bring it on.
So, all right. Would you rather eat nothing but pastel de natas for a week or drink nothing but port wine for a week?
I'd have to go for the pastel de nata because if I was just on the port wine, I would be just completely trolleyed all the time.
Exactly. I was like, you need to be a little coherent so you can learn and practice your Portuguese.
It would be entertaining.
I would love it. That would be like a whole skit on social media, like Amy on port wine speaking Portuguese.
My God. I would be getting so many memes.
I get better. The more wine
That
I
would
drink, the better my Portuguese gets because it's
Yeah.
a confidence thing.
Exactly. It's a
funny.
confidence booster. It's so funny. So my friend Michelle, she was born in the States and she just recently moved to Portugal. That's where her parents are from. And when she has a little bit too much to drink, she comes out with a British accent. I don't know where it comes from. So it's like the opposite effect. And I love it though.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah.
So-
Once I hear her say bloody hell, I'm like, all right, we need to cut you off.
That's it. That's it. Oh my gosh. So that's all I have to do is drink plenty of wine and I'll speak perfect French. Got it. All right, Amy. Would you rather get caught in a downpour in Sintra without an umbrella or get sunburned on the Algarve after forgetting sunscreen?
I would rather be in Sintra getting drenched, because I have actually been sunburnt in the Algarve and it was the worst sunburn of my life and I was in agony for 3 days. And so, yeah, I'm going to avoid the sunburn.
Yeah. Portuguese sunburn is wicked. So this happened to me too when I traveled there. I was stupid in my 20s and I forgot sunscreen and I was like, oh, I'll just buy it there. It was the Easter holiday, so everything was closed. So I was like, well, it's just April. I'm not going to get sunburned that much. Well, I got very, very sunburned. This is in Lisbon. I got scorched. And I remember going back to that hostel and the mom was making dinner. She took one look at me, ran back to the kitchen, grabbed me, and like was slathering me up with like stuff to make it better. And I was like, is it that bad? And she was like, yeah, and if you look at those pictures, it was a wicked sunburn. If I ever get any kind of like skin cancer on my nose, I'll know where it came from.
Yeah,
It was a
sunburn
bad
is no
sunburn.
joke.
It was bad.
No,
was
at
bad.
least Sintra in the rain, it kind of adds a little bit to the magic if you're like in one of the castles, unless you're like stuck. I forget the name of the place where you're just like kind of like outdoors and it's like the mural. I forget the exact name of it, but there where you have zero shade, I don't know, the rain or the sun equally bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm British, so I can handle any amount of rain.
Yeah, it doesn't bother
So like
you.
you're immune to the rain, but not the port
Yeah.
wine. All right. Would you try surfing the giant Nazar waves or karaoke in front of locals? I've seen
Well,
those
I've done
waves.
karaoke. I've done karaoke in front of locals.
I
Hear
love
this.
I had too much port, so I can't remember what I sang.
Sounds like a fun night. I'm gonna say, sounds like a fun night.
Oh my God. I have to
They
go.
always want to hear you do karaoke in Portuguese, and you're like, I can't sing in Portuguese that fast.
I can't even
Could
sing
you
in
imagine?
English.
Could you imagine me trying to sing French? Like they would like bar me from the country. They would be like, "We were nice to you. Now you're staying in the United States because this was terrible."
You know, thinking about the surfing, it can be quite scary because some parts of the Portuguese coast there's quite an undercurrent and it drags you under. And those waves in Nazaré are absolutely massive. Massive.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, I've seen the videos and it is horrifying. Like I visited there on a day trip and there were no waves when I was in town, but I looked them up after the fact and I was like, never in a million years would I do this. This is terrifying.
Yeah, no,
I-
they're
do you-
definitely intense.
I actually met somebody in a hostel and she tried to surf and she got in an accident and she got dragged under and she had to be airlifted out by helicopter.
Shit.
Wow, no,
Yeah,
those
she
waves
was
are no
like-
jokes.
She was scared to death of it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I would
that's
never
awesome.
go in
I'm
the
going to
water
give that a
again.
miss. I'm going to give
Yeah,
that one a miss.
we'll stick to the safe. Just embarrass ourselves singing karaoke.
Yeah. Yeah, embarrassment never killed anybody, right? Like, oof, that's really scary. All right, so you're on a trip in Portugal, but you are limited what you can post on Instagram. So would you just post tile floor pictures or castle selfie pictures?
I would go for the tile floor because by the time I've trekked up to the castle, I'm sweating and my hair's stuck to my head and I don't want a selfie like that.
Makes sense. And the tiles are so beautiful. I
The
love
tiles
the
are
tiles.
amazing. Azulejos, I love them. Really love them.
I actually have an album of just all of the tile photos that I took when we went to Portugal. It's insane. I think I have over
Rachel,
100
did you go
photos.
to the Azulejos Museum in Lisbon?
I did not. No, I need to go back.
There's an amazing tile museum there, and if you go right up to the top floor, there is an Azulejos cityscape view in the blue and white tiles that shows every landmark in the whole of Lisbon. It's lovely. It's
Oh my
gorgeous.
gosh,
Sounds
Amy,
pretty.
you're making me want to look at the United app again. Stop. I already booked a ticket. I'm going to be booking like 5 more. Whatever.
Euro 2022. Oh, said 23. 26. Am I going back in time? Euro trip
Oh, what year it is.
2026.
I don't know what year it is. I've given up. I actually told my students like since COVID, like every year I just like forget what it is. And then since 2022, those kids are now like getting ready to graduate. I yelled at them. I'm like, you're making me feel old. Like this is horrible.
Yeah, no, this week somebody called me middle age and I'm still upset at them.
No. Oh no. Oh no. No, I will say, and this is again getting off topic, in class, one of the kids said that he never would have guessed I was that old when I said I was in high school during 9/11. And he was like, there's no way, there's no way. And I was like, you know what? Keep it up and you get an A for the year. Just keep saying it that there's no way, and we could just make an A happen. That's it.
Wow.
Love it. I
Brilliant.
love it. All right. So, Amy, would you rather mispronounce obrigado, obrigada, or accidentally order sardines at every restaurant?
Oh, well, I've done the obrigada issue, haven't I? So I'll go for the sardines this time.
I love sardines. I forget what's the name of the museum that they have in Porto where they have like the walls and it's like a whole bunch of different sardines, different flavors, like delicious.
You can get sardines with your date of birth on as well. Did you see that shop?
That's cool.
Yeah,
So
so my
cool.
friend has asked me for some 1986 sardines. So when I go back next time, that's what I need to look for. But they have this shop. It's like a chain. So they've got one in Lisbon, one in Porto, one in Coimbra. And you walk in and it's just literally from floor to ceiling in different types of sardines and different dates of sardines. And yeah, it's crazy.
That's so awesome. They actually
Cool.
opened one, the same chain company in Times Square. So you don't have to go all the way to Portugal. You can
Really?
just
There's
go to
one in-
Times Square. Yeah, they just
I did
opened it
not know
maybe
that.
a year ago or so, or I just happened to see it. So it might be just new to me. But I was like, oh, look, the sardine place from the airport.
Brilliant.
That's so cool. We are really lucky, Rosa and I, because I remember going to a travel conference and it was in New York City. And one of the speakers said, you know, whenever you like miss a destination, go to New York, you'll find something that's related to that destination. And it is true. We're pretty lucky that we could just like go to New York and kind of get whatever food we want.
And even here in New Jersey, so like I mentioned earlier in the episode, growing up, I grew up in the Ironbound section of Newark, which is a section located near Penn Station. And predominantly back then, it was a lot of Portuguese and Brazilian. But even if you go now, you'll find a lot of like Portuguese, like bakeries and restaurants. So same thing, they do every year around the month of June, I believe. They do like a big Portuguese parade. So you don't have to travel overseas, explore locally in your local hometowns.
Yeah, we
I
drove
love
through
that.
it. Yeah, I drove through it. It was right after Wits, actually, in New York
Yeah.
when New Jersey Transit was on strike. We drove through it and the windows were cracked and I just could smell all this great Portuguese food. And I was starving. I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, can we just like stop for 5 minutes and I can grab something?
No, it's a good place to explore if you're in the New Jersey area. But Amy, thank you so much for being on the show. So if you had any recommendations for someone considering visiting Portugal for the first time, what would that tip be?
Get out of Lisbon. So many people just do Lisbon and Porto, but it's just not quite the true Portuguese culture that you get in these little places. Get to Braga, get to Lamago, get to Évora, get to Monsanto up in the mountains. Make sure you get out of Lisbon to explore. That's my top tip.
I love that. I love that. And it's really like true for anywhere. Like I heard the same thing in France, like to get out of Paris. And even for the United States, like we love New York City, but if you're going to come here, New York City is not the US. Always get out of the big cities.
I agree. But again, thank you so much, Amy. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Bon Voyage Besties with your hosts, Rachel and Rosa. So again, huge thank you, Amy, for being on the show. You can find Amy at TempleSeeker.com. We'll make sure to include all of her socials on the show notes as well. So thank you for sharing your incredible insights and stories from over 20 years of your cultural travels. If you loved today's conversation, make sure to check out her blog for more information on historical and religious destinations across Europe, Asia, and of course, Portugal. And don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and join us on the next time for more travel tips and adventure. So until then, voyage besties.
Besties, we love you and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.